Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today what I want to talk about is Lyrique's Etude number 3. This is the third watch that the Lyrique group has begun. And so let me tell you something about it, where we are. We're still working on it. In fact, we just started actually. Uh, the idea, and this is a general idea, is that we have the hour hand and the minute hand in the middle, as we've had before. But what's different about this is that we have two very different kinds of retrograde hands. One is a 24-hour hand. It was the Zulu. By the way, Zulu refers here to Zulu time. It's the time that's used by pilots. I used to be a pilot. I flew, and whenever we'd make a flight plan, we'd ask for the Zulu Hour that we should take off or do this or do that. And it was GMT. At one time, it was referred to as the zero meridian, I think, and for the alphabet that the military used, Z was Zulu. It changed to something later. I forgot what it was. But anyway, it sort of stuck. So Zulu Hour is the same as what is it called? Universal Time, UTC, and GMT. So that's where the Zulu comes from. And it sort of have a pilot theme to the watch. And Lyrique's goal, though, hasn't changed. When we started, actually, we probably started more, and I think the tail end of the pandemic, and then we got going in 2022, and in where we had our first watch come out, and then we went on 2023 this last year, where we worked on Etude number 2, which is just about finished, and but the goal was the same, is that there are a bunch of guys who love watches, but the watch prices just started going nuts. They went just way beyond what any of us could afford. And one of the things that we found out, that the manufacturer cost of a watch is about 1/6 to 1/10 of the retail price. Now, in order for a watch business to stay in business, they begin with the manufacturing cost of a product, and then they use a formula. I know in publishing that I had some experience in, quite a bit as a matter of fact. There was 10 times the manufacturer price. So they had to take the price of the typesetter and all of the other things that went in, the author and so forth, and they multiply that by 10, and that was what you'd pay down at the bookstore or get online at the bookstore. And from what we've heard is that with watches, it's pretty much the same, except it's about a factor of 6 rather than 10. And but sometimes it is up higher depending on the watch and the watch company. And so if we took those, I mean, this thing adds marketing and all kinds of other things to it, advertising. Then can be as much as 50% to the retailers. So if we could create that same quality of watch without these extra costs, then we could have a watch. But in order to do it, we had to do a whole lot of work, and this is what we've done. So, and this is one of the things that we wanted to do, and I think we've been able to do. Now, this next watch is really a challenge, because the first thing we have to do, and we're working on it now, is we're having Agenor create a new movement for us. Now we're calling it, this is sort of the tentative name, is the AGH 6850. The first one was 6801, the second one was 6802. Very minor differences between those two. This one, there's some big differences. The biggest one, in that picture you can see on the far left, the little gearing in the white. That's a snail gear. I'll talk about that a little more in a second. And that one looks like a 30-second retrograde, where it goes around every second or every minute, and every 30 seconds it goes back to the beginning again. So that was the first thing we're doing. They have to design a movement with the 24-hour, the Zulu retrograde, and a 30-second retrograde, and then with the hour hands and the minute hands. So that's going to be the new movement. This is something that they're working on right now. Now, one of the interesting things, this is something that at some point in time, I spent a lot of time looking at this. This is called a snail cam. And the snail cam, the way things work with the snail cam is that you have some kind, your gearing begins here. You have something on your needle or your hand, your retrograde hand. And so it starts here, and then as this keeps getting bigger and bigger, and so this moves it around to the side, and then it goes up, and then finally up here. Now when it reaches here, and it's keep moving, it then brings it back here, and so this is what kicks it back on a retrograde. And that was in the previous picture you saw a snail cam. At one time I had a video and I had made something that shows how this worked, and I don't think I was any clearer with it than I am with this, but it gives you some sense. And so the movement being made has to take that into account. And like I said, this is what they're working on now, and we're hoping that any day now they'll have that. Now, in terms of what we started with was what's called a mood board, and we wanted some kind of couple things really. One, a lot of the guys wanted Art Deco, myself included, but Art Deco has a lot of different kinds of periods to it, and the one we were looking at was in the 1930s, where they used a lot of the streamline with the Art Deco. And our designer, Matthew Allegri, had what he calls a mood board, and these are different images that we take a look at for beginning to create the kind of look we wanted for a watch. And so this is where we started with that. The next thing is that were some sketches, and we looked at a number of different sketches, and these are initial sketches. One of the things, we had a lot of discussion about having either a single mono pusher crown or having two crowns. And for different reasons, some of us liked the double crowns, myself included. Others wanted some other arrangement of it. But what we finally did, and what we did a lot, we talked to our designer, and he talked to the movement maker, and he said, well, the movement maker, Agenor, said that the person in particular is working on it. He said, probably you'd be best off with the crowns at 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock. And so in the sketch anyway, that's where we are right now. And so, and again, we're in mind, the kind of imagery we have in mind is the kind of 1930-ish attitude or mood, you might say. Now, over the period of, it's more than 3 years, I guess, but it's working on our 3 watches, Lyrique has changed in certain ways but hasn't affected our goals. And really, at this point, we're still looking at numbers of creating 100 watches, 100 units of our watch every time we make one. Now, the initial organization was a coordinator, and we got together with a Swiss lawyer, and he set up a trademark for Lyrique for the Swiss. In other words, we could use the name Lyrique for a watch in Switzerland. Okay, and we weren't sure about anything else. All of the banking was done through my LLC account, and we did that for the first 2 watches. Now, the current organization really grew from the second watch into the third watch. First of all, beside the coordinator, there were 3 transfer coordinators, and these were the coordinators who worked with the individual areas, really. We had people from all over the world, so we divided it up into, we had first of all Europe, and then we started getting queries from Africa and India, so we put those together. And then we had another one for Asia and Australia. Now you may wonder, well, why not put India? Isn't India part of Asia? Well, yeah, it is, but to have the two biggest countries in the world in the same group, China and India, we thought, well, we'll put India with Europe and Africa in terms of and then sort of balance it out, and then Asia and Australia, and finally the Americas. This is from all the way from Canada to Tierra del Fuego or Patagonia, and so that's where we are right now. So we have that. The Swiss trademark for Lyrique, we have that, and we're working with our Swiss attorney for trademarks, Lyrique watch trademarks for the EU, UK, and the US. I think those are all. There's another group of guys working on that. One thing we set up that's been really nice is what is called, it's a VAT recovery. On our second watch, where I was still using my LLC account, in using that, what we did was that working through we have a Swiss, it's called basically administrative assistant, and he's helped us set up through the Swiss government with our VAT. Now, here we are. This is how you have to look at this. I mean, where it gets a little complicated. You have, let's say, one of the parts makers sells a part to one of the, let's say, the case maker or dials or one of the things, and he has to have a VAT because it goes from within Switzerland to another Swiss entity, and that's where you have the VAT. But by having a record of how everything ends up going out of Switzerland, which was the great majority, I think there were 2 or 3 guys who were in Switzerland and they had to pay the VAT who live in Switzerland, but for the most part, it was outside of Switzerland. So that was something. So we got it. So we recovered it. So we spent it, but then they give it back to us. Sort of an interesting thing that they have on that. Now we also have our own banking. We set up Lyrique. One of our members did set up Lyrique LLC, and then set up a bank account through that. So now we have a separate banking. Believe me, the coordinator's job is pretty rough. So having another banking one with it really smoothed it out a lot. And then we have one of the things that I think is encouraged by the GPHG, the Grand Prix d'Horlogerie de Genève, is some kind of payback. I don't know, payback's not the right word. It's some kind of charity. And so there are lots of them. I think one we tried out for, they weren't interested. Well, but the Horological Society of New York has a charity auction, and so one of our watches we're donating to them for it. Now, one of the nice things about the Horological Society, they had basically what amounts to a chronometer testing on it to see if your watch meets those standards. And I sent this watch in when I first got it, and to quote, they said it passed with flying colors. So we have chronometer levels, and that's one of the things they're going to be doing for us with our donated watch. So our current project, where we are right now, we're finishing up Étude number 2. It was just a huge project because it was part of the effect of the post-pandemic. The first one we did, this one, it was post-pandemic, but it was still, everything was sort of up for grab because people, they didn't have the people, they didn't have the parts. Everything was very messy. And then the next year, everyone came in and wanted it, and so we sort of got at the tail end of that. And so, I mean, we got the tail end of when everybody else was there. So this project has been a lot of work, but it went through with all kinds of work to it. And so the shipping for Etude number 2 begins in March, and it'll continue through early May as everything comes together. And we started in December of Etude number 3 because we wanted to get all of the parts together. And one of the things we did was that we ordered extra set of parts for Etude number 4, which will begin in 2024. And so anyway, that's where we are. Now, if you're interested, I think we have some slots that opened up. One of the things, some parts, we had people who they really wanted to get into it, and then they changed their mind for one reason or other. Probably the reason I changed my mind on a watch, I ran out of money because I bought other watches. And so what happened though, but some parts we had sort of an oversupply of people who wanted in, and so we borrowed slots from the other ones to put together. And I think we have a few slots left on Etude number 3. So if you're interested, go to we have a web page called Lyrique.ch. There's nothing much to it, but there is a button that you can push. It says reach out button. Push that. That'll send us, put you in contact with us. And so anyway, so that's where we are right now. So that's where Lyrique number 3 is at this point. Would really like to hear any feedback that you have. This is an opportunity to subscribe to Watch Art Sci if you like. And until next time, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection.